Okay, so we will start from creating basic project for the web API. So what we have to do, we have to create on new project. Then there are multiple templates. Out of that, we have to select API. Okay, so if you search API over here, so it will suggest you that a project template for creating ASP.NET Core application with example controller and everything. So you have to select this. Okay, API. Click on it. Click on next. Then you need to select the folder, like where you need to create the project. So I'm selecting D, and let me create a new folder that is core API. Then select folder. Now project name. So let's say employee.api. This is going to be my project name. Employee.api. This is going to be my project name. So click on next. Okay, so we have installed .NET Core 2.0 and with Visual Studio 2019. So the link is already I have provided while setup. So we just have to uncheck this for a configuration of our HTTPS and click on create. So now this will create a sample web API project. So it will just take some time. So this is the project we get when we create the basic project. So these are the basic files we get when we create the project. So out of these files, let's say startup.cs. So startup.cs is kind of a configuration file for our .NET project. So like what are the configurations we need? All those configuration we can do it over here, right? So whenever we talk about any project, so all the projects will have some kind of configuration. So like just like that, for this API projects also we have some configuration. So that will be over here. Now, after that we have program.cs. So this is a file which is the execution, means starting point of our API projects. So application will start from here, right? Then we have app setting.json. So this is kind of a file where we keep our, let's say, commonly used settings, then web API config, like what are the database configuration we have, that we keep it over here. And so many things, like if we are integrating mailing, if we from our application, if we are going to send the mails, right? If we are uploading some image into Bitbucket or any AWS configuration. So all these kind of settings or URLs or passwords for those things, we keep it over here. So this is just like a constant file which we use. Then we have the controller folder. So when we create the basic project, so we get the default control, that is values controller. Okay. Now, these are the only important files we have, right? So this is about API project. Now, we need only API project is not going to do all the work. We need the database also to store the database. So I have already created one database, and this is a Navicat. I will provide you this in the Google Drive, so you can install that. I have already created an online server. On online server, I have already created a database. Login and credential will also be provided. Okay, so I'm opening this database. Inside, there are multiple databases because this is a shared server. So out of that, our test database is our name. So this is our actual database. So let me open this, then DBO. Okay, so this is our database. In this, I have already created one table. So let me create another one. So right click, new table. Either of, if you have SQL Server, you can go over there also and do the same process. But if you have Navicat, you can do the same process. Just the techniques is different. Okay. So let's try to create employee project, employee table. So employee EMP ID. This is my column name and it will have a data type of integer. So int, then this will be not null, then primary key. So this defines the primary key, and if we need this column to be identity, so we just have to check this. Okay. After that, EMP name, varchar means for string, like what number of characters we are going to need for employee name, so that we have to pass. So let's say 200 characters. Then EMP contact number, varchar Now contact number max 10 digits can be there, right? So we are providing length as 10. EMP, email ID. So for email ID, we again string will be there, but length can be at least 100, right? Then EMP state, varchar, let's make it 100 only. Okay, so these are the various columns I have in my particular table. So now let's save this. So my table name will be employees. So my table name is going to be employees. So if I click on OK, and the background you can see one table is created. Let's insert some record. So I can insert directly by double clicking. So employee ID was identity. So I don't have to provide employee ID. I just have to provide the names. So let's say Chetan, contact number, email ID, let's say state, Maharashtra. Then second, Sachin, okay. So in this table, we have two records. So when we say this is an SQL database, so let's try to write the query now. So in previous session, we have already seen like how do we suppose employee table is created. I need to get the data from that employee table. So we can write the query like select star from our table name. So that is employees. Now, if I run this, see, we are getting all the data from that particular table. So employee ID is automatically generated 2 and 3, right? Now, this is what we have done in the database. We have created table. Okay. Now, same thing, this employee details we have to get by using API. So now we have to connect .NET API project with the database, right? So for that, thank you. So this is my connection string. This we have to add it in the app setting.json. So here we have to paste it. Okay. So this is, as I told you, like this is an online server, right? So this is my IP, this is my database name, this is user ID, and this is password. Okay. And one extra thing is multiple action result set that I will explain when that use will come. So we have created a connection string, means we have provided all of my database detail into this connection string object into testcon property. This is nothing but like an object, right? Connection string. Inside that we have one property that is testcon, and in that we have stored our database configuration detail, means database connection details. This is first step. So let's just write it back. Create connection string in app setting.json. This is first step. Then second step is like we have to create a model folder. So right click on the project name, click on add, then new folder, models. So in this folder, we are going to create all the classes. Now we have added the connection string of our database. Now next thing is we have to create a DB context class. So now just let me create the DB context class, then I will explain. So class name will be, let's create a class name like employee DB context. This is just a structure we follow when we create a DB context class. Just the name we can give. Name you can give anything, but just for our understanding, we normally give a DB context name to our DB context class. Okay, so the simply class name is employee DB context. Let's click on add. Right. So this is the class we have created. Now we have to override this class with DB context. Means we are overriding this. In Angular, we have seen super kind of thing. If we, let's say, if we have a component class, we write that implement. So we are overriding that ng on in it. So just like that, we have to override DB context. So we have written the DB context. So for this, we need the import statement. Means In .NET, we have the using namespace. So if we click on over here, it will suggest the namespace. So using Microsoft Entity Core dot. Okay, now you can see it is using statement added over, so error is gone. Next thing, we need to create the constructor. Just like with Angular, we have the constructor. Same thing here also. So constructor is nothing but every class has a default function that is nothing but constructor. So there we write the constructor, but in .NET we create the constructor with the class name. Instead of constructor, it is nothing but a class name. Then this is a constructor. Inside that DB context option dot our class name and option. This is the same thing you need to copy paste. What will be changed? The DB context class name here and here. The remaining things will be same. For now, just try to copy paste the thing. So first thing in app.setting, we have to add the connection string. This is we have done. Then second thing, we have to create a model folder, and inside that model folder, we are going to create a class with name something like this is an employee project. So we have named that employee DB context. Suppose let's say if you are creating a payroll project, so it will be payroll DB context. If it is a e-commerce project, e-commerce DB context, just a name. Name can be anything. Now, in this class, what we have done, then we have override this with DB context. Okay. Then second thing, we have created a constructor, and inside constructor, we have created a structure like this. This is second step. Let me write it down. So second step is create DB context class, add below code into class. This is the code what we have to add. Okay, before that, first we need to override, right? Ride class with DB context. So this is D is capital. Then we need the things like this. Okay. Now third step. So we have created a DB context, right? Now DB context class is a database class. You can see DB. So DB, whenever we talk about database now, short form of database is DB. So this class is going to be a class which represent database. So that's why first thing we have created connection string, then we have created a class which will represent database. Now we need to connect both these things in startup.cs. Means for this database class, this is going to be the connection string. So we need to tell that, like for this class, you have to use this database, like means this testcon. Inside testcon, we have the whole database details. So for that, let me just copy paste. So in startup.cs, we need to create like this. So in startup.cs, in configuration services, we need to copy paste the things. Now we need the class name of our DB context. So let me copy paste, and here we just need to change it. We need to add the namespace also, because this class is into the model folder. So we need to add the namespace. Then use server will throw the error. For that also, you need to add a namespace. It will be using Microsoft Entity Core, right? So we have added, so error is gone. So what you can see here, the connection stream name. What was the connection stream name? Testcon. This is present over here. See what we are doing, connection configuration dot get connection string. So we are from configuration, we are trying to read the connection string. So that's why we have passed connection string name, because here we can have multiple connection like this. This is one connection, one database connection, two database connection, three database connection with different connection names. So out of that, which connection we need for this class? So that's why we have provided the connection string name. We just remove. Currently, we just have one connection, means one database. So third step, add in startup.cs. We need to add this line. In which function? Configuration services function. It is a method. So let's create it as a method. In coming session, I will explain like what is the difference between method and a function. Okay. So for now, just try to understand the process. So 3 steps we have created. Again, I will repeat. First steps, after creating project in app setting.json, we have added our connection string. Then second step, we have created a model folder. Inside that model folder, right click, add, and class. We have created one class that is employee DB context. In employee DB context, we have override that class with DB context. Then we have to copy paste this, and here we have to add the DB context class name. Then third thing, in startup.cs, in configuration function, configure services function method, we have to add this line. And here we have to add our DB context class name. And here we have to provide the connection string name, which will come from app setting.json, this, right? So these are the basic things we have created. Means now database is connected with our API project. So connection is done. Now we have to write the API. So before writing API, we have to create the controller. So right click on controller. Now we are going to create new controller on add, and here you can say controller option. Click on controller. Now in the left side, you can see you have some options, but you have to select API, and then you have to select API controller with empty. Click on add. It will ask you to provide the name. So name will be, let's say, employee controller. Click on add. So see, this is the basic employee controller created. Now, next thing is like we have to provide the name also, that is employee. So our API will be our port number /employee/employee /API/employee. After that, next thing we have to create now API, means particular function which will return the employees from that particular table. So for that, we have to write now API will be of HTTP GET. So HTTP GET. Then route name. So route. To route, we have to pass the string data. Get all employee. Then we have to write public. Now, from this function, we are going to return employee data. Okay. But before that, we have forgot one thing. We have created database. Okay. We have created controller also. But now we have to create a class which will be connected to the table. So what I'm doing, right click on model, add class. Now I'm creating a class that is employee master. Okay, I'm creating a class which will be connected to my database table. Click on add. Okay, so this is the class which we have created. Now, what we are going to do is, let me just open the design, right click, design table. So we can see the column name and everything. Now, first thing what we have to do is write, this class is going to be, as I told you, like employee DB context is a class which is connected to my database. In just to summarize, this is a database class, employee DB context. Now we are creating a table. We are creating a class which will be connected to our employee table. So this is that class. Now on the table, above the table, we have to provide the table name. So that will be table. T is capital. Okay. So we have to add the namespace. You can see namespace, it is suggesting this. Now in table, in double quotes, we have to provide our table name. So our table name is employees. So this will go over here. So by this, what we have done, we have connected this class to our table from that database. Now, so in this particular table, we have several columns, right? 5 columns we have. So now we have to create the properties. So prop do so this is how you create the property. Then, as I told you, like this class is going to be representative of that particular table. Means this class is exact replica of that table. So whatever the things we have in that table, all things we need to create it over here also. So what does it mean? So here we have employee ID. Data type is int. So we have property name will be emp id and data type is int. So let me just copy paste. Second thing. So now second column is employee name. So we have to copy paste. Column name should be same. So we have to copy paste. Now employee name has data type varchar means string. So we have to keep it over here as a string. Let me just copy paste. Employee name, after that employee contact number, then employee email ID, and last one is employee state. So it will go over here. So now if you see, we have created a class which is having what number of column that particular table has, same number of properties we have created. And how we have bind this table to that table, because above the class we have specified the table name, means this class is binded to this particular table. Okay. Now inside here, this employee ID is a primary key and it is identity also. So same thing we need to specify over here also above the employee ID property, again square bracket capital KEY. So this will denote as a primary key. Okay, so primary key we have done, but this is identity also, means automatically it is going to increment. So that also we have to mention it over here. So after that key, comma, database generated, round bracket, database generated option dot, wait, database generated option dot identity, round bracket. So now this is an exact replica of my table. What are the columns I have in my table that I have created? For this employee ID, it was a primary key, so I have added key, and this was identity also, so that's why I have added this, right? So my employee master class means one class is created which is connected to my table. Now this class I have to add in employee DB context with DB set, because we need to specify now, because this is a database class. So we need to specify like what number of classes are of this database. So we can register that using public DB set. And in DB set, we need to add, you can see angle brackets is there. So you just have to copy paste the syntax. Considering you all are new, so you just have to copy paste. Remember the steps, what I have done. If you do the exact same thing, you can create the API without prior knowledge. Now here we have to add the employee class name. Then we have to create the object. So when we create the DB set now, we just add S. So we can just differentiate. Again, getter and setter. Okay, so basic things are done. So third step after that, in model folder, we have to create class for table like below. We'll just copy paste the thing. Right. Then fifth step, we need to add created class in DB context class with DB set like this. Okay, so fifth step is done. Now we can write the API in our controller. Public. Now we are going to create a method which is going to return the data we get from the employee table. So that will be, we are going to return the array of employee master, our class. So list and our class name, that is employee master. So let me just copy paste the class name. Over here, we need to add the namespace of that particular folder. You can see API/models. Then our method name, get all employee. See, it is .NET, Visual Studio is with the latest version, it is so intelligent that it will provide you some method names also, like get employees master, get employees, get master. Based on the things we created, it will auto suggest also, but you can create your own also. Now, this is providing error because we haven't written something. What type of data we have to return? We have to return the list of employee master. Okay. Now I'm creating a variable with var list equal to. Okay. Now we have created a function. Now what we have to do, we have to get the data from the table using our DB context class. So we have to create a object of DB context class. Let me just copy paste. Okay, our DB context class name is employee DB context. So this will go over here, and our employee controller name. This is constructor. If you see a function now with the same name of class, so that is nothing but constructor, and it will go over here. So see, your DB context class name will go over here and over here, and this is your class name. Okay, so just try to copy paste the thing. So after 6th step, create DB context object in. Okay, first we have to write the create controller in controller folder. Then create object of DB context class like below. This is 6th step. Then 7th step, we are going to create an actual API. So we have created instance of DB context, right? So we can use underscore DB dot. So in DB, in this particular database class, only one class is there. That is only one table we have registered. That is employee master. So if you see here, if I start writing, you can see it is suggesting employee master. Now, dot, what we need? List of all the records from that particular table. So we have to use dot to list round bracket. That's it. So what it will does, from our database, just try to read it like this. From our database, we need the list, we need all the record from this table. So that is the meaning of this table. Whatever we have written over here now, this same thing, select star from employees. What it does, it will get all the record from this particular table. So this is compared to this, equivalent to this. Same thing. Okay, so this thing will get us all the record from our database table. And it will store into this list variable, and we are simply going to return that like this. Now this our API, first API is completed. Now let's try to save and run. Hope you are getting. Let's try to test the first API we have written. By default, it is running on some, in your project, when you run, it will run on some different project. It is not fixed. Just like in Angular, we have something fixed, 4200, but here it is something else. So this is my controller name, API/employee, my controller name, then actual my method name, that is get all employee. So I have to paste it after this. If I say, let's just add a debugger. So now we can add the debugger on this gray area before this line number 25. So you can see debugger I have added. Now, once I enter over here, see debugger is activated. Now let's try to execute line by line. So you can see over here, step over icon button is there. So if I click on it, so if everything is correct now, means everything is correct. So we have it has executed this line. So if I hover on this list, see, it has got 2 records. You can see we have got the array of employees, and that we are just returning. So if I click continue, see, this is how we have successfully created project, and we have written the get API also, which is returning data from the table. Now we don't have anything in .NET, right? In Visual Studio, we don't have that record, but that data is coming from the database of that particular table. Understood? So this is how we write the get API. What we have done, we have simply connected our API project with the database, and we have created one API. And in that API, we have written the data we get from that particular table. So let me just stop. So in our database, we have department table as well. So let's try to run the query on this department table. New query. select star from departments. If I run in department, I have two records only, sale and the marketing. So now we have to get the data. We have to create an API which will get us the data from this table. Now let's go back to the .NET project. So in controller, first controller we have created for the employee. So how many controller we create? Normally, we create controller based on the table, just a standard approach. Suppose in any in any page, let's say if we are designing a web application, if we are on the employee page, so what things we can do? We can insert, update, delete, and get, right? Four operation we can create. So we create employee controller. In this employee controller, we store all the operation, I mean get, post, put, delete into employee. Now we are trying to write the API for the department table. So let's create another controller. Again, right click on the controller, add. Now we have to create controller. Click on API, select employee, default option, then departments or department controller. Click on add. Okay, we have created controller. Now next thing is, whenever, now just like that employee, we have created a class which was connected to the employees table. Same way we have to create a class which will be connected to the department class. So right click on model, add class. So now departments, your class name table name, it is not necessary that your class, because we are joining the both of them using this table, right? Whatever the name your table has, same name you have to give over here. Let's just add the namespace, then our table name, that is departments. Always try to copy paste, because if you make the spelling mistake, then you will get the error, right? So first thing is done. Then in department table, we have two properties. So let's just design. So department ID is going to be there. So for that, prop 2 times tab. So it will create the basic structure, department ID. Then again, prop and 2 times tabs. Second thing is department name. Now, column names we have added. Now we have to check the data type. Department ID is int, but department name is varchar. Varchar means string. So we have to keep it string over here. Then department ID is primary key. So again, square bracket, inside that capital KEY. This will denote that this department ID is a primary key. Then it is auto increment also. So database generated round bracket, database generated option dot identity. Now our class is created, which is connected to our particular table. Now we have to register this class into our DB context class. So in DB context class, using DB set public DB set angle bracket, our class name, just copy paste it. You can see it is suggesting like that with yes. As I told you, like we always go for the standard. So we create the object using S only. Okay. Now we have created class, that is department.cs. We have added that class into our employee DB context also. Right. Now, next thing in department controller, we have to write the API. So let's just add the name, that is department. Then we have to create method. So method will be get. So HTTP get route name, let's say get all department. Anything you can give. Let's say just get department also will work. Anything, because this is just like a variable or function name you give, just like that. Anything you can give. Then public. Now you are going to return the list of departments. Let me just copy paste class name. So we just have to add the namespace. Then our method name, get all departments, opening, closing curly bracket. Again, I'm creating a variable list equal to. Now, we need to create an object of DB context. So you can see in employee controller what we have did here. So in every controller, you have to copy paste this code. What will be the change? Just here, our class name will be changed. The remaining things will be same. Now here, underscore DB dot. Now in this particular employee database, we have two tables, employee master and the database department. So in this controller, in this API, we are going to get the data of departments. So we have to select departments. We need all the records we have in this particular table. So dot to list round bracket, and we are going to simply return the data. Return list, this variable, because in this variable we have stored whatever the data we get from the department table. Let's just add the debugger and let's try to run. So now our controller name is department. So after API, we have to write API/departments, then our actual method name. So that will be get departments. Okay, one more thing, we are not calling this method name. We can what we can say, call the API using this name we provide in the route. So this will go after this. Enter. See, debugger is activated. Let's try to debug F10, F10. So in list, you get to see two records, department name, continue. That same response, you can see it over here. Let's try to add one more record, departments, IT, development, testing. So now in table, we have 5 record. So now if I again hit this API, and if I continue, see, you got the updated record. So this is how API works. Whatever the data we have in the table, API project will get that data from the table and it will send it back. And this we consume in the Angular project with the API URL. So that's why, means from front end, request will go to the API. API will get the data from the database, and then it will return it back to the front end application. So this is how our application cycle is going to be there. UI, API will go to the database will return the data, again API will return the data, and then we show that this data into the table or somewhere, wherever we need. Okay, so hope you have got these basic things. So today in this episode, we have created just the get API. In next, we will be creating post, put, and delete.